you still trust the guys to get the outs we're expecting to get. Been a tough stretch for those guys for sure. Got to keep plugging along though. Hopefully get everyone back to full health. Been a little bit of a tough stretch.
I can say that again. Hey, I'm going to say this, man. If you were going to fire a manager or a general manager, today would be the day to do it.
Are you calling it?
No, it's Leafs locker clean-out day, so it's a good day for a news dump. So anybody out there, you got anything you want to, you're going to raise taxes on anybody or you want to do anything, now's the day to do it, man, because this city, it's all about trying to figure out how the Leafs screwed it up again. And I'm just happy because I won a bet I had with Barker. Barker bet me that the Jays would be eliminated from the playoffs before the Leafs. And so I won that bet. Barely.
Well, you're good at bus throwing me. You
Barely.
are good at it.
Hey, the Jays have today off. They start a 2-game series against the Phillies Manoah in Philadelphia. Yeah, 16-19, losers of 2 of 3 to the Washington Nationals, including an 11-8 loss yesterday, where they took the torch to a 6-1 third-inning lead. We've talked about this team's inability to score runs. They've beat the Royals 6-1, lost 9-3, won 6-3, lost 11-8. There appears to be a little bit of offensive light at the end of the tunnel, maybe, Kevin.
With a couple guys.
Yeah, John Schneider mixing up the batting order or mixing up the lineup. Bo Bichette hitting 5th on Saturday, 4th yesterday. Vladdy made some contact. There were offensively, there were some signs, but now I think the concern is twofold. In addition to the offense, and I'm not convinced that they're out of the woods yet, Kevin Barker, the Jays bullpen, after Sunday, 30th in ERA, 30th in fielding independent pitching, 30th in home runs per 9 innings, 25th in strikeout to walk rate.
Yeah, it's not a very good team right now. You got a couple of guys in your lineup who, on an everyday basis, look like they're not present, in Bo Bichette and George Springer. And that's very hard for a manager to try and figure out how to hide guys. It's like you're safety squeezing the 9-hole hitter because you're trying to hide the guy on the on-deck circle. It's hard to do. You just look at George Springer's numbers. They're like he's hitting somewhere around 230 with nobody on base. It falls off a cliff with traffic. He's sitting somewhere 120-ish with runners in scoring position, 130-ish with runners on base. It's just not good enough, and that's why you're seeing John do the things he's doing.
Yeah, you're talking about the 7th inning yesterday. Ernie Clement, a safety squeeze with Danny Jansen.
What it is. I guess that's what it was. It looked to me like safety squeeze means you see the ball down. If you're the runner at third, that's what it looked to me like. A squeeze means you see the ball being put in play off the bat, you go. If the ball's in the air, you get doubled off. It's not your fault.
Right.
It didn't look that way to me, did it?
No, it did not.
Why would you? The only question I have is why would you safety squeeze with a guy at third base who is not a fast base runner? That doesn't make any sense to me. It's 8-8 in the 7th inning
because he's got to wait for the ball
to be down. That's the whole point of the safety squeeze is see the ball down and then go. Right. Your secondary lead is good enough that when you see the ball down, then you go. That's why, for me, it looked like a safety squeeze. I have no idea why it's a safety squeeze. I understand
John Schneider wasn't asked after the game.
Yeah, why would you ask? Why wouldn't you? Why? I don't understand.
Whether Clement did it on his own, or it didn't look that way because you can see Carlos Fabulous, the third base coach, say something to Danny Jansen before it happened. But yeah, it was at that point the game was tied. And then, of course, as we talked about it, the bullpen. Right now, the bullpen is
Who's the 8th inning guy?
You, me, I don't know. Yeah, as long as the status of Jimmy Garcia, and we have to say Jimmy Garcia was not available this weekend because of a back issue.
Well, you can do when you do things outside the norm at his age.
Well,
body parts just don't know how to handle it.
You made a point when we were sitting here raving about his velocity. That's great, but is there a payoff with that velocity? And we don't know what caused the back problem, but it's entirely possible that is something to do with that. Anyhow, we don't. We'll know tomorrow what the status with Jimmy Garcia is, but certainly with Jimmy Garcia and Chad Green. John Schneider is not playing with a full hand right now, and boy, Nate Pearson hasn't been the same since he was sent down.
Yeah, he may not be a big leaguer.
Well,
what is it? 19.6 pitches per inning.
Yeah,
he's averaging over 5 walks per nine. That's just not big league bullpenish.
Yeah, Genesis Cabrera is basically
it's strike one and three of his 4 pitches not working. That's and again when you don't have a certain guy that you're counting on to do special things.
It's hard to live in a cutter only. Man.
Well, because you don't throw it as hard as you throw your other pitches, and then he's effectively wild some of the times, and he's facing them more righties. Righties are hitting 409. He's not throwing enough strike ones. You got to do things with certain pitches when you're facing righties a little bit more than you want to face them. And then that makes your strength suffer because now that cutter, it's not a cutter. That thing's got a hook in it. I mean, cutters have hooks in them. He calls it a cutter, but, it's more of a slurve, sloppy curveball kind of thing. That's why he needs the other 3 pitches to work. The 4-seamer, sinker, and the curveball. He's got to have everything working all at the same time. He's got to be in the right pocket. When he's not, it suffers. And then what's wrong with Eric Swanson? It looked to me like yesterday he's trying to not show his hand. Like that, you could almost see where it's just really uncomfortable. I got to make sure the ball is, the glove is way back here so nobody sees what's coming.
Does that tie into John Schneider's suggestion that he's tipping pitches?
Every once in a while, you overthink it and you wonder to yourself, he's getting hammered. It must be tipping his pitches. The split finger, to me, the slider is non-existent, and the split finger looks really bad. And the home runs he's given 4 off his – he's given up 4 on his split finger. 0-0 count, 1-0 count, 1-1 count, 0-2 count. That's predictable. When it's predictable, it's got to be really good. It's got to be really good with a movement. It's got to have late movement to it. That has nothing to do with him tipping it. I know the conversation around him, and I've talked to enough people that say that even he is worried about tipping his pitches. Boy, you look at them pitches and where they're at. Even the home run he gave up was yesterday. Yeah, the home run he gave up yesterday to the lefty. That's a little down and in.
A lefty hitting 096.
That's sweet. That's a sweet spot for old lefty. So for me, it's more about the location and just the quality of the pitch. Again, if you're John Schneider, who are you going to?
Well, no, the one thing I will say about Ross Atkins is generally he's been pretty good when it comes to addressing bullpen issues. This kind of reminds me a little bit of a couple of years ago.
But there's like 5 of them.
If you remember when they went and added Trevor Richards and Adam Simber.
Better hurry.
This kind of reminds me of that. But
sort of baby and Jordan Romano.
Yeah.
Jimmy Garcia is not your 8th inning guy because he's injured or whatever he is. I apologize. I'm not he has back issues. And then there's everybody else. Like you mentioned, Nate Pearson. You're looking at Eric Swanson, Genesis Cabrera.
There's not a big circle of trust right now.
Like Trevor Richards, I guess, is your 8th and your 7th and 8th inning guy. It's more about, I guess, where he's starting the change up. It seemed to be a tick better. But who you have confidence in going to, and then you look at your lineup and Springer and Bichette. That's
good
luck.
Yeah, and Bo. We know that in the past, Bo has talked about. He likes consistency in the lineup. Saturday, after finding out he was moved down in the 5th spot, he said, I haven't done anything really, so I think it's the right time to switch things up. If I have to be the one that goes down, then that's fine with me. Bo, though, that he's going to be a little chapped about that. He hasn't liked in the past.
Do you care?
Being dropped.
I think John's to the point where he does. Well, it's like the Davis Schneiders and the Dalton Varshes are doing better.
Do I care?
Do you? He was 1 for 11 versus the Nationals. He's 3 for his last 26. That's 115.
At this point,
he's 9 for his last 57. Hit 158.
At this point now,
do I care? Do you care?
Point now,
it's just you go out and try and have a better at bat. Do we care if he's hitting the ball harder too? Like it's performance driven now. Like it's the George Springer thing. George Springer's 4 for his last 31 with an RBI. He's hitting 170 versus relievers.
It does strike me as odd that George Springer seems to get a hall pass from this manager.
This is what
front office.
This is just me. Where else you putting him in the lineup? Like, he ain't run producing. Yeah, you're the reason why you moved Bo down in the 4th or 5th spot. Maybe he'd come up because he's better with traffic.
You know what? Why wouldn't you put Springer 8th or 9th or 7th?
Yeah, okay, I'm with you.
I mean, why not?
Who you putting in the leadoff spot?
I don't know. Farshow, Bichette, whoever. Davis Schneider. I mean, anybody. Right now, Kevin, right now, I would tell you what. Of the 9 dudes in the lineup right now,
he's the worst hitter on the team.
He's the worst hitter in the team.
It's not even close.
And I'm including the 2 catchers. He's the worst. He's the worst hitter.
Yeah.
Hell, I'd hit Kiner Falefa up there before I'd put him up there.
Yeah,
but
that's fair.
We've been led to believe in the past that George Springer doesn't like being moved out of the leadoff spot. Again, if it's me, I don't give a rat's ass. If you're not performing, we've already shown we'll move Bo Bichette. If you're not performing, I'll find another spot for you in the lineup. And it's not a matter, you're not going to hide him. It's all, you know as well as I do that given the way things have gone this year with this team, the day that John moves him down into the 7th spot, if it were to happen, he'd come up with the bases loaded 3 times. I mean, that's just the way it is. And then we'd be sitting here saying, what do you do? Hit him 15th?
Put him on the Kirky plan.
Positive.
David Schneider's really good. IKF.
Vladdy Jr. hit a grand slam and then proceeded to, well, he had a couple of at-bats.
Yeah. Look. He's moved around the batter's box. I mean, hey, welcome to the party. Like, if you're not going to do anything mechanically with your lower half that's obviously different, move around the batter's box a little bit. He's gotten a little further away from the plate. Like, instead of standing where he's standing, he's moved closer to the third base dugout, which is, he has trouble with the ball in. Extension on the ball in is a thing with him. Timing and whatever else you want to call it. So you try and give yourself a little bit better of a chance to get your arms extended and make contact where you want to make contact. Hitting the fastball the other way and pulling the off-speed stuff in the air, that's a decent approach. And if you can do that just by changing where you're making contact and having your arms extended on certain pitches, I like him taking the 2-0 fastball down the middle because that dude throws a bazillion. It's hard to square that up. Give him a chance to mess up and throw an awful pitch. That 2-1 changeup that he threw Vladdy, I mean, that's an atrocious pitch. Whoever's calling that should be sent down. But give Vladdy credit. He's moving around in the box a little bit to change whatever you want to change. It's like that moving around in the order. It makes you feel different. Hopefully it makes him feel different. And the results just didn't happen yesterday. He's moved around the last 10 games or so. So it's obviously been working. Keep doing that. Hit the ball hard to the pull side in the air.
Yeah, there have been signs. We've talked about it. He's been hitting the ball hard. Now you want to see him hit the ball hard in the air like he did yesterday. I mean, he's still going to have the at-bats like, striking out in that 3-2 pitch that was outside.
Yeah, pitching's tough. Again, the timing issues with the lower half's always going to be there. Like, it will be until he buys into changing that. It'll always be there. But you got to give him credit. Moving around a little bit. It's not a giant move, but it's just enough to make you feel different up there and think that you're going to make contact in a different spot. So take the fastball the other way, pull the off-speed stuff. It's a decent approach. Stick with that. It's been working.
Alek Manoah, 4 innings, 6 earned runs, 92 pitches, 4 walks, 6 strikeouts. It looked like he had sinker arm side to left-handers. It looked like it was okay. Still, the slider to me looked like a work in progress. I don't know what you saw.
Yeah, it's poop.
Okay, there you go.
Like, I want to say some of them are decent. Like, again, this is performance driven. Like, he's had enough time away from the field. I think all you need to know is when he is coming out of the game, sitting over there having the conversation with Bassett and Gosman. I think Bassett's got that bad, look, I can't read lips, and I'm not going to try. But it seemed to me like it's the Trevor Richards thing. When you got the changeup, why are you aiming in certain spots? You want it to end up this area, you got to aim in a certain spot. I think that's sort of why you saw Bassett have the bat and sort of saying, okay, here's the plate. If you want that slider to end up where you want it to end up, stop aiming here. Aim here. And maybe it will break and you will have, better extension. It's the execution in the zone. It's the timing out of the glove and release point. That has to get better for everything to be more competitive. He was 11 for 24 throwing strike one. He ain't got good enough stuff to do that. He just don't, even against the Nationals. You know, there's enough lefties in there that you got to get ahead. You get ahead, you get them in swing mode. You get them in swing mode, you get easier outs that way. It allows you to not always have to be perfect with certain pitches. It's like Eric Swanson. Eric Swanson's not throwing enough strike ones. I can zone up a little bit more. I can look up. He's more predictable. He hangs the split finger. It goes out of the yard. So, yeah, I mean, again, there is some things to build off of. He looks like he's in better condition. The pitch clock or pitch timer or whatever you want to call it didn't seem to bother him.
Didn't bother him. No,
No.
it didn't.
And the velocity was there. That's a big deal for him. You know, the sinker, when he threw it to certain quadrants, I mean, that was decent enough. It's just consistency of timing. Out of the glove, release point. For me, because he falls off that far to the first base side, that'll be a big work in progress. This is just me. I think Alek Manoah might be the least of their worries. I mean, they got more guys.
Well, he is the fifth starter. Right?
He is, right. Absolutely. So
I
will.
And
least of their
he's going to be
worries.
treated that way.
There you go.
No, it's that's as long as the rest of the starting rotation kind of keeps it together, you can live with what Alek Manoah is going to give you. But you know, you can't unless the bullpen gets straightened around. You do need that. You do need that to happen. And there's 2 off days in the next 4 days now. Maybe that will have some sort of a rejuvenating impact on the bullpen. I don't know. The Jays signed a couple of minor league pitchers over the weekend.
They can pitch the eighth inning?
You know, who the hell knows? But they signed Bo Sulser as a AAA and Joel Cunella from the Houston Astros. They acquired him for cash consideration. So they're down to AAA.
I think they're up against it a little.
Well,
right? You got to try and figure out your lineup. You know, you're pitching. Some of the guys that you were counting on have gotten off to really, really bad starts.
Yeah.
How do you fix it? I mean, it's a lot to fix.
Well, and you know, it's you look at a guy like Trevor Richards, who isn't the worst of the lot, but you know, at some point you wonder when that stops working. You know,
changeup's pretty good. Location, I think the adjustment of where he's starting the changeup's gotten better the last couple outings. So you feel confident in that, but you feel confident giving him the ball in the eighth inning, meat of the order. No. I mean, they don't have a setup guy, and they don't want to pitch Jordan. You know, probably a couple of innings this early in the season with what he's coming off of. So, boy, again, if you're John and pockets and trying to keep the lefties away from righties, and Nate Pearson looks like a minor leaguer again, and Eric Swanson, who knows? You know, maybe it's just that's the reason why the Mariners got rid of him. Look. There's a lot happening here. So
let's be clear. I mean, I'm not going to turn this into a bash Eric Swanson episode. He was left off the postseason roster by the Mariners.
Yeah.
Or let me rephrase that. He was not used in the postseason. I don't know if he was actually left off.
Wasn't great at that time. The
postseason.
They felt like they had better options. Yeah. Again, I don't think it's the end of Eric Swanson. But if you're trying to win these games and you don't really have anybody else to go to, when you pitch an Eric. John's tried to throw him 7, 8, 9 against the 2 or 3 righties. Righties are hitting 500 off him. Yeah, who are you going to?
You're at the
when
point,
you pitching him.
You're at the point now where you've got 3 relievers you're trying to avoid having to use in certain situations. It's just not. It's not going to work. Saturday the Jays won 6-3. Gifted though that was a weird inning. The first inning, the Houston Astros first inning, it was a 4-run first inning.
Was it the Astros? It was the Nationals.
I mean, the Nationals. That was a strange inning. Jays sent 9 men to the plate.
The Nationals not a very good team.
No, they're not. They're not.
They're rebuilding. That's what they call it for a reason.
But still,
making the routine play, and you got youth on your team. That's sort of what happens, right? If everything gets out of whack, bodies, lower half's going one way, upper half's going another. You miss the ball. You give the other team another chance to score another run, and that's sort of where the Nationals are at. Thank goodness that KK hit a homer and added a little separation, made it a little easier for John not to have to sort of try to go to dudes he didn't want to go to. It's a tough thing right now, right? I mean, John can do no right with both sides of the ball. So is that John's fault? I'm going to raise my hand and say it's not.
No, I mean, there's not a lot of there's not a lot going on right now. So let's
you can put Bochy managing this team. What's he going to do differently?
Yeah.
Well, offensively and with the bullpen.
So what do you think happens with Bo when they play the Phillies on Thursday? Where do you think he's hitting? Do you leave him in the cleanup spot?
Yeah, they're facing a lefty the first game. That's be Christopher Sanchez is a lefty, Aaron Nola the second game, and then TBD the third game. Who's
only 2 games?
Oh, is there okay? Then that's your 2 guys. You got a lefty and a righty. I'm assuming he's going to be somewhere in the 4th and 5th spot. You're not moving him up. What's the point in moving him down?
Yeah.
Well, it's shown you he's 1 for 11 versus the Nationals. 3 for his last 26. I mean, that's a big enough sample size that will tell you you're not going to move him back up in the 2-hole. Like, again, it gets back to that. I would ask the other question. What do you do with George Springer?
Well,
I think they're sort of married to what they're married to with Bo right now because, they're just trying to, I guess, give him a little bit of a mental break just with, when they saying that he's hitting some balls harder and Hazel made the report, I think, in the second inning. It will tell you, that they're confident, I think, in just where the ball's going and how hard it's going there. Will tell you sort of direction's a little bit better, timing's a little bit better. You could see light at the end of the tunnel.
Here's the thing.
Do you see any light with George Springer?
No, and here's the thing I was going to mention about that. You put 100 people in this room and say, who thinks that Bo Bichette at the end of the year will have numbers closer to what Bo Bichette has had at his peak versus how many people think George Springer is going to have numbers close to what he had at his peak? I guarantee you 99 people out of 100 would probably say that there's a better chance of Bo doing that. I get back to this to last year with George Springer. It's not a good sign when you have one of the healthiest years of your career and your numbers are down almost across the board. Like that's not good.
It's not.
It's almost like the more you play, the worse you get. And
yeah, that's not very good.
And I mean, I don't understand why he seems to be not given carte blanche. I don't think that's right. But I don't understand why he seems to be to avoid any of
now let's
because as well as I do. Well,
you can't make a couple of moves at one time, especially of your everyday guys. You'd have to make them. You go baby steps here. You move Bo around first.
Why can't you?
You see how that goes. I think that sort of overwhelming your lineup all at one time with everyday guys. Yeah, I mean,
really? It's overwhelming.
I think maybe
we're taking a dude who can't.
Maybe because what's the alternative?
Honestly,
it's
right
not
now,
any.
Right now, you know what the alternative is?
It's not any. I don't think that's the way it works.
Right
with
now, the alternative is anything's better than what you got with Springer leading off. It literally
So
is.
you're telling me, say, Bo Bichette was leading, or no, not Bo Bichette. Say Kevin Biggio was leading off. John Snyder's not still safety squeezing with a 9-hole hitter?
Do you know?
That's the point. No, I don't know, but I'm assuming.
I don't know.
I don't think that changes what John would try to do. I think that's where sort of they're at with a certain couple of guys in the order. It's not the easiest of moves. Like you're trying to.
The dude's getting 25. I know. He's getting $25 million. Move your ass down in the order.
I've said that forever.
You're getting paid.
I've said that forever. That he's making $25 million. You expect more. Yeah.
It's not even that I expect more. It's that you're under contract. You're going to move down in the order. You just are.
Oh yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, maybe they'll do that tomorrow. But
I mean, it seems as if I don't know. Maybe he has it written in his contract that he has to do a certain number of commercials and you can't move him out of the lineup while he's doing a certain number of commercials.
Well,
I don't know.
They have moved him down.
I do not know.
They've moved him down.
Yeah, once.
Well, that's because Marcus Semien was better.
And
that's the point.
Yeah,
who do they have that's better other than Davis Schneider? I'd rather have Davis Schneider hitting down in the order. Maybe he can drive in a run or two or three or four.
Okay, I guess just keep running them out.
It sounds like that's maybe what they're going to do.
Running them out in the leadoff spot.
We sort of thought that was the way they were going to do with the first 4 guys anyway. And, they moved Bo around because Bo was hitting 196 or whatever he's hitting.
What's George Springer hitting?
Not much better than that.
They're 16-19.
Yeah.
35 games in. Again, I'm sure there's some back path thingamajig that we don't know about here.
I don't think
I'm sure
that's
there's probably some number that suggests that George is just about to break out, or the organization, they're just scared to ruffle his feathers. It could be that. Could be that.
Yeah,
it's the only thing I can think of.
I don't think John is. John, I think is.
Well, he shouldn't be, but
let it be known that he's not afraid to move the order.
Well, what if it's? Are you sure it's his decision to move Springer in the lineup?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna go with the side of absolutely. I think until we're told differently, yeah, every one of these moves that are being made are John's doing. Let's just say that. I don't have anything to back that up with, but I sure sounds to me like that the information, and at least I think even the GM has came out and said that we're going to give the information. And whatever John does with it and the coaching staff, why do you think at the beginning of the season they were tooting that we believe in the core and the coaching staff? And we're going to stay out of the way. Isn't that what they said?
Well, they didn't say
we're going to believe it.
No, they didn't say they'd stay out of the way. They've never said they would stay out of the way. They know they can't.
What did they say?
They said they were going to improve communication. There's going to be improved communication. At no point did they say they're staying out of the way.
I took it that they were going to give information, and whatever John wanted to do with it, John could do with it.
Chance.
Sounded that way to me.
No. I did not get that.
You must be hearing something I ain't hearing.
No, I didn't get that impression at all. I got the impression that they were going to try to improve communication and streamline things and yada, yada, et cetera, et cetera. But I certainly didn't get the impression that that the front office's fingerprints weren't going to be all over this.
I mean,
lineup.
It don't take a rocket science.
And again, I think that's part of the.
Does it take rocket science to move Bo down and move Dalton Varsho up against a right-handed pitcher?
Does it take rocket science to move George Springer out of the leadoff spot?
Yeah, I think you got better. What would be the other option? You have an option with Dalton Varsho. What's the other option? What is it? Tell me what it is.
I'd put Varsho in the leadoff spot.
Okay. Who's hit second then?
I don't care. I'll put Bichette in second.
You should care. You just moved Bo down for a reason because he's not performing.
I'm saying that I don't understand why Bo is kind of being made the scapegoat here.
He is a little. You could argue that. Absolutely.
He is being made the scapegoat for the fact that the dude at the top of the order isn't hitting. He's being made the scapegoat for that. And at least that's the way I look at it.
I'm with you there.
And you know John better than I do. John can't be scared of George Springer. Who the hell would be scared of George Springer?
Yeah, I don't think that's it. I would certainly hope that's not it. Oh, yeah, why would you be scared of George? Just because George's going to be here for another 2 years? Oh. There you go.
We got a good show ahead of us today.
Say that a couple of times to yourself.
Just bang my head against the desk or a garbage can. Ryan Dempster. What? Ryan Dempster, Jayson Stark, Ruben Amaro Jr. will join us.
Woo!
What?
Well, I mean, that's a way to go to break. You're going to go to it.
It's Blair and Barker.
Wow.
Sportsnet 590 The Fan and Sportsnet. All right, welcome back to Blair and Barker. It's an off day. It's a Monday. The Jayson Phillies will start a 2-game series tomorrow. The rivalry game. The Phillies are allegedly the Jays' rivals. We've got a couple of tickets to give away to see the Jays and Minnesota Twins. And we will do that
Twins are on a roll.
Later on in the show. My Twins.
Mm-hmm.
Twinkies. They are on a roll.
Raking.
They are.
Yep.
Actually, that whole division. There's 4 teams in that division that are not horrible, to say the least. And there's the White Sox. Oof.
Yeah. Get off to a good start. Get some confidence. Confidence is a big deal this time of the year, boy.
Yes.
It is.
Absolutely.
It's not always about mechanics or what you're not swinging at. It's a lot about confidence. You believe, overcome a lot, yeah.
Ruben Amaro Jr. is an MLB Network analyst, former Phillies GM, and host of the Phillies show. He will join us at 3:30. The Phillies will be without Trey Turner. Indeed, they'll be without Trey Turner for a while, for 6 weeks after he scored on a walk wild pitch from second base, which was quite the play. Jayson Stark joins us at 3 o'clock. We'll take a look at what we learned in April across MLB. And, of course, we will talk about the trade that was made on Friday night. The Miami Marlins trading Luis Arias to the San Diego Padres for a package of minor leaguers, after which the Miami Marlins general manager came out and, to his credit, said, we're not a playoff team. And kudos for honesty there. Let's bring in Ryan Dempster, host of Intentional Talk on the MLB Network, former MLB pitcher and World Series champion. Mr. Dempster, sir, thank you very much for joining us today. How surprised were you to see a trade of that magnitude? I mean, Luis Arias is a decent player that would make a lot of teams better. How surprised were you to see a trade like that made this early?
Honestly, I'm surprised it doesn't happen more often. And the reason I say that is when you want to try and get a player, especially when it comes to rental players, like, you know, he's not in that category, but when you can give a team who's looking for something a little bit more time with that player, you're likely to get more in return because you're not just getting 2 months worth. And, you know, when teams self-evaluate really well and they realize, hey, man, we can get a boatload of people. But, like, let's be honest, the Marlins aren't winning that division. So that's not happening. So, and the odds are they're not even, like they said, they're not a playoff team. That's good self-evaluation. So how do we maximize this opportunity? And you get 4 really, you know, good prospects. Whether they pan out, we never know, right? Like, but you make a good trade to try and get you know some bulk for some brawn. So I think it should happen more often. I think there's teams out there right now that could trade players away, and it would benefit their probably retooling or rebuilding a lot quicker.
Yeah, should mention too, the Marlins did kick in basically $8 million. So essentially, it's not I think the Padres will be paying a small portion of his contract. But it's an interesting point, Ryan, because I've often wondered the same thing. You know, I know there's the old adage that, you know, what is it? You split the season up into 3 segments: 1 to see what you have, 2 to get to make adjustments, and then in the final third of the season, you kind of let it rip after you've made all your adjustments and everything. But man, I've also thought, you know what? If I look at my lineup and I think I need more balance, if I can get it now, then get it now, right? That's not going to change. If I need more balance on May 6th, probably going to need it on June 6th.
Well, and like think about it this way: if all of a sudden you need it and it comes trading deadline and Luis Arias becomes available, you know how many more teams are going to want that bat in their lineup, a little bit less swing and miss and stuff like that. So now you're competing against all these other teams who now find themselves in playoff runs that might not have been. I think it was a good trade. Now, do I think it's what the Padres need? I don't know, man. Like, this team is like one of the biggest enigmas in all of baseball. You look at their lineup up and down, star-studded. Why don't they win? Why aren't they dominant? They got good starting pitching. They got a decent bullpen. They got an offense that should be lighting it up every night, but they just don't seem to win ball games. So maybe a little less swing and miss and a little bit more top of the lineup, put in play, set the table for the guys behind is exactly what they need.
Do you think the Padres, like the most of the main guys in their lineup, think with this maybe we're not good enough? Like, why are you making the trade so early? Are we not doing what we're supposed to be doing? Can that disrupt anything in a clubhouse? Clubhouse is big nowadays. Like, that's you got to make sure everything, the ducks are in a line when it comes to the clubhouse. Does that do a good thing or a bad thing to this, you think, with the veteran guys in that room?
That's a good question. I think, it can kind of like sit there and say like, hey, we don't got time for, you to turn it around. Like, they make a big signing in Xander Bogaerts, right? And they go out and they get them. He had a decent year last year. Not a great year. 19 homers, hit 285, struggling this year. So it's like maybe you just are pushing guys a little bit. You're just trying to create depth. You have, now you have guys you can move them all around. Slide Bogey back to shortstop with Ha-Seong Kim, although Ha-Seong Kim's an above-average defender. So it's like you add some depth. I think for a team, if you're getting a good player and a good hitter, I don't really think that disrupts your chemistry. I think that just makes you feel like, oh, cool, they they obviously believe in us because they're going and getting more, right, rather than trading guys away. Now, the other way around, Bark, is where you start to be like, really? Like, you're trading guys away? Like, if you're on the Marlins right now, you're like, oh, cool. So you come out and say we're not a playoff team and you're trading our best hitter away? You're clearly making it evident that you don't think we can win, and that can be a little disheartening.
Ryan, we saw Alek Manoah yesterday make his season debut. 4 innings, 6 hits, 7 runs, 6 earned, 4 walks, 6 strikeouts. He threw 94 pitches over 4 innings. I mean, it was a real mixed bag of results for Alek Manoah. I mean, I understand. I think we all understand sort of what Alek Manoah's role with this organization is right now and what their expectations are for them. But Ryan, how hard is it? How hard is it to kind of to go to a guy and keep saying, "Hey, trust the process, trust the process, trust the process"? When he's looking at numbers, this is a guy that was a Cy Young finalist at one point. This is a guy who wants to make more money. He's looking at numbers and seeing his results and scratching his head. How hard is it as a pitcher who only pitches once every 5 days to kind of adhere to that compared to the everyday player who's, I don't know, 0 for 8, but gets 2 hits the next day, and there's a little bit of a light at the end of the tunnel there.
Yeah, I imagine yesterday, like, just putting myself in his shoes, because I want this kid to succeed. He's a good kid, man, and it's just like it's hard when you see a guy have so much success early and then, struggle like this for whatever the reason. But it's interesting. It's like he wasn't lighting it up in AAA. He wasn't like dominating, but he was getting better, and they needed an arm, and he gets this opportunity. First batter, error. Now there's a runner on base. Instead of being an out. Now you strike out the next guy. Now there's 2 out, nobody. Like, things just somehow didn't go his way early on in the game, and then the walks, right? I don't want to Jesse Winker. I don't want to, walk him. But he had good stuff, man. He threw some really good 2-seam fastballs. Like, I liked a lot of the stuff that he was throwing. There's still a little bit too much spin and not enough bite on his breaking ball. But the 2-seamer was running good with good velocity on it. And then you get to that point where it's like, okay, all of a sudden the 4th inning, you're like, you got a chance, right? 2 out. And it's like, here we go, the single, and then the single, and then the big homer. And it's like, just like 2 out. If you can just get through that inning, maybe he goes 5. But that's, if. But the signs were pointing in the right direction. It wasn't awful. It wasn't like he came out and you're like, oh, God, what's happening here? No, lots of really good stuff. So, just build off that. The Nationals offense is swinging the bat really well right now. You ran into a hot offensive team. Take those positive things. Keep throwing that 2-seamer in the zone. Don't pick on the corners. Attack those guys. And I think that he can eventually get back to somewhat of a version that we were seeing. Is he ever going to be the same? I don't know. That's up to him. But I did like a lot of the way his pitches were shaped and the way they looked and the velocity.
Damn, did you ever have to say no to a teammate? As soon as he came out of the game and between innings, camera would pan over and you could see Bassett and Gosman having a conversation. Even Bassett, I think, was having a bat. It looked to me like he was saying, if you're going to throw your side, I'm just guessing here. I can't read lips, but it sort of was looking like that he was saying, if you're going to throw the slider to this guy, start it here. And he was sort of trying to show where and if this is the plate. Have you ever had to try and figure out how to say no? I know I wasn't good at it. I had Jeff Jenkins used to always tell me after every at-bat this, that, and the other, and it would just overwhelm me. Do you think Alek is there? Like, do you think he can do that? Too much?
Say no?
Yeah. Like, you have to learn how to do that, right? Yeah.
You definitely have to learn how to say no, or like maybe another time. Like, I've said that to teammates. Hey, I'll talk about this later. Right now, okay, I can't talk about that right now. Like, I'm in my own space right now, and I need that. But we can talk about that later. Or, sometimes we want to help, right? Like Chris Bassett, he wants to help so bad. He wants this kid to be good, and everybody does. And so sometimes, and then you feel that, you're like, man, everybody just let me do my thing. But at the same time, you got to take a step back and go, hey, man, they're trying to help me. It's not coming from a place. If they didn't care, they wouldn't say anything. So that's the big thing you got to remember in those moments. But find it when you go back in, write down, go in the video room and look at all your pitches and be like, good pitch, good pitch, good pitch. And then don't even mark down the bad ones. Just focus on all the good ones. How many did you execute, and how many more can you next time? I remember Harvey Dorf, man. I was a young guy going through some struggles my second year in the big leagues, and just kind of battling a little bit my first and second years. But my second year, and I'd have a start, and I'd walk. How'd it go last night? I go, I walked 4 guys. He would just say, so effing what? He didn't. Like, who cares?
Mm-hmm.
Did you execute pitches? Okay, cool. How many pitches did you execute? And I'd say, I executed 70 out of 100. Okay, how do we get to 75? How do we get to 80%? Like, execute. That's all you can control. And if you can get into that mindset, you can get out of some bad places. And I feel like he's on his way out of some bad places that he was in, and he just got to keep executing pitches.
Ryan, at the start of the year, we heard an awful lot about Yoshinobu Yamamoto. But Shota Imanaga has been, he's 5-0. His ERA is 0.79. Has been absolutely remarkable. What is the secret to this guy's success, and will he be able to keep this running all year?
Yeah, I really do believe he will be. I think if you kind of take a step back and go, okay, what's been going on here, and then you kind of get outside the box and you look what he did over in Japan. He was a sub-3 career ERA over there. He was a guy that way less hits than innings pitched. And then the thing that was most impressive, and I think that the Cubs really liked with him and the scouts really liked with him, this is a guy who was almost 4-to-1 strikeout to walk ratio. And I know the leagues are different, but some stats translate. Like if a guy is sitting there and punching out 8 every night with just 1 or 2 walks, there's some command there. And he has tremendous command. He's got deception. He's only 5'11", so the arm angle is untraditional. It doesn't come out of where you normally see it. And then that split finger off of that fastball, the arm speed that he has through the pitching delivery, he never slows down, so it's hard to pick up. He can attack the upper inside right, handed batter's box, that upper quadrant, up and into righties very well. Got a little giddy up on it, and he's accustomed to this. He strikes out dudes. He pitched on the biggest stages in the WBC, started the championship game against the U.S. Like, this guy loves it, man. You see the moment. So now, is he going to have a .78 ERA all year? Probably not. But I'm not surprised he got up to a really good start. The guy works really hard. He's a student of the game. He's wrote a book on pitching. Like, he loves it. And this guy, I think the Cubs got probably one of the biggest steals in the offseason. He wanted to be a Chicago Cub, worked out well for them, and he isn't disappointed for a second.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yan Gomes talking about him and saying it's like trying to hit off an iron mic, a pitching machine. He said you just keep getting under it, fouling it back. It's the same thing. It just gets his fastball is the same thing. It just gets there faster than you think, and that I think gets to your point about just the height. The how short he is in the arm angle. It's got to be a very uncomfortable at bat. Yeah,
well, and they're all different. Like, Barks faced a ton of them, man. Some guys are like, this guy's throwing 92, and how's he blowing it by everybody? Yeah. And then some guys throw 96, and everybody's fighting at the bat rack to hit next. They're like, man, let me get back up again. This guy's cookies. And it's just weird. That's why everybody's different. We can't put everybody in a box, and everybody fits into the model. You can try and create these different pitchers the way you want them to be, but at the end of the day, some guys just have it. They have it. Whatever that it is, he has it, and he has the ability to have a little extra giddy up. The ball spins really well as it comes through the zone. It doesn't die through the zone. It goes through the catcher, not to the catcher. And then he can pitch, right? He can have that split to change speeds. He can cut the ball in on righties when he needs to. If they get in swing mode, cool. I'll just cut it a little bit inside. You can pull it foul. And then he just, in those big moments when the game gets going, he's got runners on base, he has this really good way of just calming down and making the big pitch when he needs it. He did that over in Japan. He's done that in the WBC against the best teams, the best players in the world, and he's doing it in the best league in the world. And it's, I'm not shocked. I'm just shocked it's been this good. I knew he was going to have success. I didn't think it was going to be like this.
Yeah, right now, who's the best pitcher in baseball?
Corbin Burns.
It's not close?
So I had to pick one. What's that?
It's not close, or it is?
No, it's close. I just think this guy, he's doing I would have said Garrett Cole, but he's not pitching right now.
Mm-hmm.
But this is a guy that just year in, year out, man. It's Cy Young contention. It's 6 to 8 innings of solid work. It's attack the strike zone. Cool. You hit a leadoff home run, start the game. That's the only run you get. Like he has the ability to do that. Like where it's like guys get him early and then that's all they get. That's an ace. That's a guy who does that. And he's a best pitcher too, because the way he's led by example over in Baltimore, all these other guys are just feeding him off him. And Baltimore might have the best rotation in the game.
Yeah, he is. I mean, he's been a real. And I think he will be the difference maker in the AL East based on what we said. Like Juan Soto's pretty good, but I mean Corbin Burns.
Game 1 and Game 7, Dip. That's what it's all about, right?
Yep.
When you got that dude, sort of win day, right? Pressure
you got
off.
that right. When you got somebody, when you need a win, I mean that's how the Cubs won the World Series. Think down 3-1 going into Game 5, and they had John Lester start that game.
Mm-hmm.
That guy's a winner. You need that guy who, on the biggest of stages, the heart rate stays the same, and not only that, he's hoping. The Roy Halladay's who used to sit there and go in the office and say, wait, how do I get my start so it lines up against the Yankees?
Mm-hmm.
Not so that I miss the Yankees. I want to figure out how I face the best teams, and that's Corbin Burns.
Mm-hmm.
Demp, we're going to let you run, man.
Great.
Thanks for doing this. Good stuff as always, my friend.
Thanks, buddy.
Be well.
You got it, guys. Always good being with you, man.
Yeah,
Take
see ya.
care. It's Ryan Dempster, host of Intentional Talk on MLB Network, former MLB pitcher and World Series champion, 2013 with the Red Sox.
Yeah, I just wonder about
Canada's
the Alek
own.
Manoah. That, look, sometimes it's I understand what Bassett and Gosman are trying to do, but boy, it just seems like a lot, right? It's just every time he goes out there, it's like just picking and poking at everything.
The optimist in me, though, would suggest that
he's a good kid. You root for
he's
him.
a
At
good
least I do.
kid.
He is.
They
Yep.
care for him.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's important. I just this is not meant. This is no disrespect to Alek Manoah, but you know what? I just want Alek Manoah to be healthy this year and be the fifth starter and give me decent fifth starter outings. That's really all I'm looking for. As long as he can stay in the major leagues this year and contribute in some level, that's all I'm looking for from this guy. I'm not going to get too into the weeds with it. If what I saw yesterday is kind of what I'm going to get, I'd like to be able to see those 92 pitches go 5 1/3 or something like that. I'm fine with it. I just think that's where we have to be right now with Alek Manoah. The biggest thing Alek Manoah can do for himself right now is take the ball when it's given to him, try to go those 5 innings and contribute and not pull the side down. If he can do that, I think this year will be a success.
Yeah, I think you'd like to see, he's been away long enough. I think people like to see him be able to, when the catcher sets up in a spot, throw it there. Like that I think is, he's been around, I think, long enough now to be able to self-correct and know what he's doing wrong
though?
and fix it.
He didn't pitch a lot last year. He did not throw the ball a lot.
But when are you going to stop saying that?
Well, I don't have to.
15 starts into this thing?
I don't have. It doesn't matter. He's my fifth starter.
Well, you think he'd be well rested?
He's my fifth. He's my fifth starter. I'm not putting any limitations on him. I'm not putting any expectations on him. He's my fifth starter right now. That's it. Can he give me what Yariel Rodriguez gave me? I'm fine. That's it. I'm not looking for anything more. I'm not looking for him to be the Alek Manoah that was a Cy Young finalist or anything.
I do think it's okay to put a little bit of pressure on him to say, you need to get this going a little quicker. Like, stop doing I know I didn't snap it off enough. Snap it off enough. Like, you're a big leaguer. That's all. I think for me, I look at him that he is good enough to be able to do that. Do it. I think that's where he's at, right, in his career and how long he's been away and the stuff he's been working on and the mechanical changes he's made and solidifying the conditioning and all that stuff. It's just now I think it's time to see a little bit more.
We have got tickets to see the Twins and the Jays at the Rogers Center. We've got Ruben Amaro Jr., former Phillies general manager, current Phillies analyst, ahead of tomorrow's series opener against the Phillies. Speaking of Philadelphia, the mayor of Philadelphia when it comes to baseball joins us next. Jayson Stark of The Athletic. Don't go anywhere. It's Blair and Barker for a Monday on Sportsnet 590 The Fan and Sportsnet. No idea what the hell's going on here. Blair and Barker for a Monday. Leafs clean-out day. Leafs locker clean-out day. The, 58th annual Leafs
Somebody
locker
getting
clean-out
axed?
day.
Somebody got to pay for them losses, no?
Well, they should. It's awfully hard to get. It's awfully hard to get axed in this city if you're a sports executive. Yeah.
Huh.
I don't know why that is, but it is true. It is true. It does seem as if it does seem as if this is there's a different feel around the Leafs this time than there were in the previous 57 years or whatever the hell it is. We've got tickets to give away to see my Minnesota Twins take on
front runner.
No, to see my Minnesota Twins take on the Toronto Blue Jays at the Rogers Center this weekend. We've been giving you the chance to win Blue Jays tickets all season long here in Blair and Barker. All you have to do is text the correct answer to our daily baseball trivia question to 590-590. Our last trivia question and answer was, which team did the Royals face in the infamous Pine Tar game featuring George Brett? The answer was the New York Yankees. This is a good one. Today's question is to win tickets to see the Jays and Twins at the Rogers Center on Friday, May 10th. Twins are smoking hot, right?
They are.
Did you see?
Get it down, get it singing.
See Johan Duran's entry? That's pretty good. That's better than the Edwin.
Better.
That's better than the Edwin Diaz stuff. Yeah, better than Edwin Diaz.
I don't know about that.
Oh yeah. Get your
Diaz
phones out with
good.
the lights. Anyhow, Justin Morneau won the AL MVP in 2006, narrowly defeating which player for the award? Again, this is to win tickets to see the Jays and Twins at the Rogers Center on Friday, May 10th. Twin slugger Justin Morneau won the AL MVP award in 2006, narrowly defeating which player for the award? You can text the answer to 590-590 for your shot to win. See rules at sportsnet.ca/590. Yeah, I like the closer intro.
Yeah.
For Duran in Minnesota.
Yeah. And
asking the fans to hold the phones up.
You got to be good. Like, I know he's good, but you got to be.
Like Vernon Wells on Twitter said, you do that, you better strike out the side. You come into that, you better strike out the side.
Well, you're paying a lot. You're getting a lot of attention paid to yourself, so.
That's okay, though.
You need to be good. He's really good, though. So
he is fun, too.
Diaz is good, too. Yeah, you got to be. Yeah, baseball's fun. It's such a marathon that you got to have fun with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Helps that you're really good, though.
Yes.
It does.
Well, it also helps that your team's good enough that you're saving games that you're saving games.
That helps, too.
That division is that's something else, man.
Maybe it's underrated this year.
Oh, I think it's hugely underrated.
Yeah.
And I didn't buy into the Tigers necessarily. I didn't buy into the Royals necessarily. I thought the Twins would probably win by default. I will just admit, I had no idea the Guardians were going to do what they're doing. Josh Naylor is something else, man. I just, there's 4 teams in that division, I think now over 530 or something like that. And of course, then you got the White Sox down on the bottom. But, that's, I'll tell you this right now, it has an impact on what the Jays are doing because if you're talking about the wild card spot.
Yep. No question.
I mean, you look at the Tigers, you look at the Royals.
Fighting for the third wild card spot. That's what they're doing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a lot more teams.
Or the division tie. Absolutely.
To compete with. So it might tell you what Ross may not do because of that reason.
There may be only 2 teams come out of the American League East this year for the postseason.
Yeah. Oh, it's the top
conceivably.
2. Yeah, it's
the two top teams.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do we have Jayson with us? By the way? Okay. No rush. We could talk hockey.
Not really.
No. Everybody's had their say. Who are you cheering for, Edmonton, or are you cheering for either of the Canadian teams?
No.
Yeah, neither am I. As a Winnipeg Jets fan, I
Denver.
Colorado? Cheering for Colorado?
Absolutely.
I probably cheer for the Rangers of Carolina.
Nuggets are in trouble.
Yeah. Let's bring in Jayson Stark of The Athletic. Hey there. You look happy.
How are we doing there, boys?
Oh, we're doing well. Last place in the AL East, as we all predicted. What could go? What could go wrong? Hey, the Marlins trading Luis Arias. I'm going to ask you the same question we asked Ryan Dempster. You're an old former baseball beat guy, and didn't we always say that it's like, wouldn't we look at May 6th back in the day and go, man, it's too early to make the type of deal that type of deal. We're still in the let's kind of make sure that our spring training evaluation was right stage of things. You're not supposed to do this in May 6th, are
you? Hey, how about Peter Bendix saying it was unlikely his team was going to make the playoffs? You think? They were 8-26 at the time. I could have told them that.
I keep wondering what's poor Chris Getz going to do in Chicago? What's he going to do now? He's got to come out and kind of, I don't know.
Yeah, well, like here's the problem with if you started going through these teams, Marlins, White Sox, Rockies, there's not a lot to trade on those teams.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the Marlins would have more to trade than anybody. And Luis Arias was a really interesting guy to dangle out there. There are a lot of really interesting aspects to this deal. One of them was the Marlins paying all of this guy's salary to sweeten the prospect pot. Think about it. The Marlins just paid all of the salary of the guy they traded. We're upside down, aren't we?
Well, that's what I was thinking. If I'm a Marlins fan, I don't know what would upset me more: the fact that my GM has waved the white flag while the Florida Panthers are still in the playoffs, frankly, or the fact that my team that generally doesn't pay anybody is paying a guy to play someplace else. I don't know. Is he going to be their highest paid player this year still?
Well, if they're paying all the salary, then I think that's how it worked out. I'd have to go through the payroll, but I think that's how it works out. They did it to get better prospects,
right?
And they made out okay in that trade. So I understand that. Peter Bendix was not the general manager when they acquired Luis Arias, so that plays into this too. Not really his type of player, although a guy who actually puts the bat on the ball and doesn't swing and miss should be every team's kind of player. But that aside, I want you to think about this from the big picture. Think about the history of baseball in Miami, in South Florida.
Mm-hmm.
Every time they've made the postseason, doesn't it feel like they started a sell-off 15 minutes later?
Yep.
Right? Like, isn't that a tough way to build and sustain a fan base? I would just have a hard time always doing that.
Jayson, when you speak of a sell-off, and I don't want to say that the Blue Jays are going to do that, but it's sure intriguing getting off to the slow start that they've gotten off to. Obviously, offensively, they're not scoring a ton of runs, but now all of a sudden the bullpen's not real good. If the bullpen's not real good and the lineup consistently is not real good, do you see the Blue Jays doing something sooner than later with one of their bigger players, starting probably with, say, Bo Bichette?
Sooner than later, I would really be surprised by that. Let me just start by saying I was sitting with some scouts one night at the ballpark in Philly. This would have been a couple weeks ago. Okay. One of them had just come from seeing the Blue Jays. Here's what he told me. He said, when I saw them last year, I thought that was the most talented team in the league. It was the most talented team that I saw. And then they never played to that level. And then he said, I thought the same thing this year, but I'm afraid to buy into them. And so that's coming from somebody who works in the game, and I don't blame anyone for feeling exactly that way. We've broken down the parts of this engine before. Best defense in the league, should be one of the best rotations in the league now that Gausman has his health and his act together again. And then you start looking at the lineup and think they should hit. They have talented players. They have a good process. It makes no sense that they would be 12th in the league in runs scored. And here's the thing, Kevin. I think it makes no sense to them, right? So the way they're built, when you think about what they have invested in this team and who they haven't invested in, I don't think they're wired to break this up sooner than later. Maybe at some point, but sooner, no.
Jayson, what do you think they do with George Springer?
I don't know how movable he is. I think the guy to move is Vlad. I do. Talked about this on MLB Network the other day, and I know that's tough to contemplate, but we put up his numbers since the beginning of 2023, and it's frightening what an ordinary player he has been. I think he was 47th in the sport in homers since the beginning of last year, and 70 something in slugging and 100 something in OPS. And this is Vlad we're talking about, Vlad Guerrero. And so if he's just an average player and you've got no traction toward signing him, keeping him, extending him, he's 25 years old with a year and a half to go. Like, isn't that the guy to think about moving?
Yeah. I mean, that would be the obvious choice, right?
I mean, either of those two, either him or Bo. But I still think that
here's where I think Vlad. Okay, like if you look inside the data, his hard hit rate is something like 58%, which means the bat speed's still there. He just can't get the ball in the air. You don't think there are teams out there that look at Vladdy and think, "Oh, we can fix him"?
Oh yeah, we can reinvent the wheel. Yeah,
happens all the time.
I just wonder what it would take for Ross to say, "Okay, I'll do that." I mean, let's be honest. Like how they've handled the team, the way the season ended last year, how you heard Ross talk about the manager and the team going, out of the season last year, what they didn't do in the offseason to make the team better. Like, what would it take to get rid of one of those two to keep a fan base? I don't want to say happy, but there's a word in there that I think you could there you go, and actually put fannies in the seats. I just wonder what you could get for them, I think is the question.
I think you do well for both of them. Are they prepared to announce to the world that the Vladdy and Bo era, or at least the Vladdy and Bo window, is closed, over? Are they? That's like, again, not right now with nearly 130 games to go. They're far from buried. They're looking at a similar scenario to last year and trying to get into one of those wild card spots, because 8 games behind the Orioles is an ominous place to be on May 6th as the Orioles start to get healthy. But they're far from buried. They're too talented. It's just hard to understand why they keep playing the way they're playing. This is a topic for 7-8 weeks from now, more than now. But it's something to think about.
Yep. Your recent column, What We Learned in April Across MLB, and one of the things we've been kind of throwing around here is the AL Central and how that shakes out. I mean, we were just talking about how, if you're a Jays fan following the Jays, you got to follow the AL Central now, because this may be a year where you only have 2 teams come out of the East, two playoff teams. Which is the most real team to you in the AL Central right now? Which of those 4 is that's a real thing? That's not fool's gold. That's not going to go away. That's legit.
Yeah, that's a good way to ask it. I think if you really look at the Tigers and Royals, it's not their time. Mm-hmm. They weren't really planning on this year to be their time. I think both of them, as they constructed their team, thought to themselves, reminded themselves, we're not in the AL East. We're in the AL Central. Is it going to take 97 wins to win our division? It's not. So let's build an 84-ish win team and maybe get lucky, and we'll see what happens. That might be enough. It was what Fangraphs actually projected. The other 2 teams are a little different. The Twins are built to win. I don't know if they have enough pitching to win, but the team on the field is definitely more built to win than the Royals and Tigers. Yeah. The Guardians, it's just what they do. They always find a way to do less or more with less, and they're doing it again. Like I would have thought when they lost Shane Bieber and Terry Francona was not pictured, like that was not a playoff team. but you have to convince them of that. It's just built into their culture. But if you look at the talent of those two teams and compare it to the depth of the AL East, if you even compare it to Seattle, Texas, I don't know whether it would include Houston or not. Um, there's a gap in talent. So I am not in the school that says there's going to be two AL Central playoff teams. I'm just not there.
Jayson, biggest takeaway first month and a half of the season. What is it?
Well, I'm amazed by Shohei. I'm amazed. We just had Dave Roberts on our Starkville podcast. This will drop later this afternoon. And we were talking about this. How can a guy change teams, change leagues, sign the biggest contract in the history of sports, have his world blown up by having the guy he spends 24 hours a day with basically getting hauled away in balls and chains, and be better? But that's happened. Yeah. Juan Soto in New York, that is working. That has happened. And then you've got this group of guys who are just announcing to all of us that they're superstars. They're all shortstops. Bobby Witt Jr., L.A. De La Cruz, Gunnar Henderson. Like I would start with those three takeaways. Like we could pick apart a lot of stuff that shocked us and disappointed us in April, but if you're talking about what was the best stuff we saw, I talk about those guys.
You also made an interesting point, because in the past, whenever a player has shown up late for spring training or signed late, we've kind of gone, well, I mean, he's probably working out in his zone. He's got a gym and he's got a training partner, and it'll be fine. And once the season rolls around, he'll hit the ground running. It is kind of nice to know when you look at, guys like Snell and Chapman and that maybe, and it's great for folks with expense accounts that get sent to spring training by their organization, that maybe spring training does matter again, right? Maybe it's just not the whole glorified BP that some of us old curmudgeons kind of make it out to be. Maybe you need it, actually.
Kevin, do you notice that Jeff was a guy who used to get paid to go to spring training every year and thought they're going to catch on to this one year? So he seized on the part of that item that said, don't get misled by what you think spring training is. It really matters.
It matters.
So you better send me next year. Okay. So
it's like the line from Blazing Saddles.
What?
It's like the line from Blazing Saddles. Gentlemen, we've got to protect our phony baloney jobs.
I don't know if it matters for the players to be there, but Jeff, Blair, and I need to be in spring
Damn right.
training. Yeah. So, it really does have some significance, especially if you're going to sign in the middle of March or the end of March. It's just not enough time to not just build up for the season, but do all the other stuff that goes with changing teams.
Mm-hmm.
You've got new teammates. You need to find a place to live. You might be switching positions for all we know. There's a lot that goes into it. And so, all these guys that I mentioned, they're all Scott Boras clients.
Right.
And all the teams heard from Scott was, don't worry, we got them in here in the lab, or we got them here in Camp Boras, and they'll be fine. They're throwing, they're hitting. They'll be fine. What we've seen so far tells us that's not true. And I went back and looked at the body of work of players who signed in March over the last 5-6 years. None of them had the season they were signed to have. Not one. And there's a moral in that story. I just saw the Giants the other day, Jeff. They signed Blake Snell. Okay, he's been brutal, and he's hurt. And maybe he might not win a game till July. And then that means you're paying him $30 million, and he's going to make 14 starts. Yeah. Plus, he's going to pick up his option. He's not going to opt out.
Exactly.
You got another year of $30 million for that guy.
Yeah.
Jayson, how about...
You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I got to ask you about the Phillies, and the Jays are about to play the Phillies. And I tried, when I was looking at the Phillies, to find a weakness. I can't find one. Can you give me one?
Trey Turner just got hurt,
Yeah.
but I think you're right. That's one of the best teams in baseball.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if they're better than the Braves and Dodgers, but I think my top three would start there with Baltimore in there somewhere. And the funny thing is, I saw a lot of the Phillies and a lot of the Jays this spring. And if you had asked me which team had the better spring, which team was more prepared to get off to a great start, I'd have said the Blue Jays. And then the opposite has happened. Um, Baseball's a weird sport. Both teams are built to win, and only one of them is winning. But the Phillies looked like the Jays looked last year and the year before that at this time. And remember how it ended up, which is a reminder of how long a baseball season is. But this is their best team, the Phillies. It's their best roster, the most complete roster. And, one of the things that Dave Dombrowski said over the offseason was he normally wouldn't run it back with a team that didn't win, that came up short. But he was so struck by the motivation level of the group that he wasn't worried about that at all. And so he started running through it, because if you remember, MLB.com, right before the season started, was breaking down every category of every team.
Mm-hmm.
Best rotation, Phillies. Best lineup, Phillies. Best bullpen, Phillies. Best defense. They were one of the top 5.
Right.
That was a switch. So you tell me, is there something they don't do? I don't see it. If they start getting hit with more injuries like the Trey Turner injury, that would be an issue. But that's true of every team.
Yep. Yeah, and it seems to me that the emergence of Ranger Suarez has kind of it's brought them a little extra wiggle room too for any injuries to their position players, because he's been remarkable. I mean, he's
as good as anybody. He's teased them with that for several years now, but he actually made it through a whole spring training, wasn't late, wasn't hurt. And there was something about that guy in the spring where you saw that commitment to being what he can be for 6 months. Haven't you always thought there are certain players who aren't built for the marathon?
Yep.
They're talented and they tease you, but 6 months is a long time to be great. And it's what separates the great players from everybody else. The great players come to play or pitch with focus and energy every time they're out there. And a lot of people can't do it. Ranger Suarez is trying to prove this year he's one of the guys who can do it. And so if he's this, you just pitcher of the month, and they have 3 number 1 type starters, who has that?
Not many.
Yeah, I kind of wonder if maybe when you look at Ranger Suarez, if last year's postseason wasn't. It seems it was really good for him. Like every now and then, I think you see a guy in the postseason, and you go, that is going to change him, just for whatever reason. And I kind of got that impression last year. And then you see the way he started this year. It's almost like he got a little confidence last year in the postseason.
Well, I mean, he was really great in 22, and he was really good last year until the last start. Remember when that start was? It was Game 7 of the NLCS.
Right.
His team needed to win, and he wasn't good enough that night. And he has talked about that, about he can't let that happen again. And so it was good for him in every way. Got a sense of how good he can be, but also a sense of what it means to his team, the importance he can have to everybody that he plays with if he's what he's supposed to be. And that's a really important lesson in the growth of any player.
Yep.
Jayson, really good of you to do this, my friend. Thanks so much.
Thanks,
buddy. Good to see you as always.
Always enjoy it, my friends.
See you later.
See ya.
Jayson Stark of The Athletic and the MLB Network.
Yeah,
so the Jays will miss Ranger Suarez.
Yeah. Well, you're going to play. You have to play your best game, like against these teams who don't beat themselves a ton. And I think the Phillies have figured out how to defensively and running the bases, not to run into outs, and make most of the time the routine play. And you add the pitching staff to the mix, and Bryce Harper's healthy, and Alek Baum is starting to rake. I mean, Alek Baum's got 32 steaks.
Yeah.
I mean, they got 4 dudes with 20 or more RBIs. Like, they're doing things offensively. The ERA, I think, in the pen is, the sort of the last 10 in baseball. I guess if you wanted to poke at something, that might be it. But, man, they got power pitching. They have power that can, sort of help their lineup when they're just not stringing together enough hits. So, yeah, they're the total package. You better show up. And they got attitude, too, which is kind of nice to watch. Yeah, it's kind of fun. And you got to go to Philly and play, which is not the easiest place to play. So, yeah, it's not going to be easy for the Jays to sort of, I always talk about them big boy pants. You better bring a couple pairs.
Yep. Yep. Ruben Amaro Jr. is former Phillies general manager and MLB network analyst. He's host of the Phillies show. We'll take a deeper dive into the Philadelphia Phillies, the Jays and Phillies. They will play 2 games Tuesday and Wednesday. It's Blair and Barker on Sportsnet 590, The Fan, and Sportsnet. All right, 4:05 will be the first pitch today as the Giants and Phillies get at it at Citizens Bank Park. Zach Wheeler on the mound for the Phillies. Kevin Barker, they are 24-11, their best start since 1995 when they were also 24-11 after 35 games. And, of course, it will be the Phillies who will take on the Blue Jays Tuesday and Wednesday at Citizens Bank Park. It's interesting, our conversation with Jayson Stark. Could it be that the 3 best teams in Major League Baseball are all National League teams? Very easily.
Absolutely. Well, especially with the way the Astros are playing or not playing.
I mean,
you could say that. And the Orioles.
Baltimore.
You could throw the Orioles in there, but if you throw the Orioles against the 3 National League teams, how do you think it's going to look? Right?
Yeah.
It's like the Orioles are a really, really good team, but are they as good as those 3 teams? You got to go on the road and play in the play. Like, they could get there, right? I'm sure they'll make some adjustments and add some pieces at the trade deadline. The Orioles are going to get better. It's okay to be the 4th best team in baseball.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it is very much the case, though, that if you had to rank the 3 teams in baseball right now, I mean, I would think you would have to have Dodgers, Phillies, Braves. Braves are kind of...
They're in the middle with the rotation.
Yeah.
Right? I think that's what it is. And Acuna Jr.'s gotten off to a little bit of a all-over-the-place start.
It's the type of team I'm going to be very interested in seeing what Alex does, because it's the type of team that you can see Alex Anthopoulos making some sort of move in the middle of the season.
Going to have to shake things up, right?
To give it a bit of a kickstart.
Sure.
But, my goodness, the Dodgers are so good, and the Phillies, I mean, I don't. I'm like you. I looked at trying to find a weakness for the Phillies, and the only weakness in air quotes I could come up with was the fact that Trey Turner's out.
Yeah, they hit so much it's hard to find one.
Ruben Amaro Jr. is MLB network analyst, former Phillies general manager. He's host of the Philly show, and he joins us in Blair and Barker. Ruben, thanks so much for doing this today. We just had Jayson Stark on, and we were looking at the Phillies and spent about 10 minutes trying to come up with a weak spot, and we figured maybe we should just move on and not look much deeper, because we were imagining things. Look, they're playing today. They're 24-11 right now. I'll just ask you, how good is this Phillies team compared to the other Phillies teams we've seen in the last 3, 4, or 5 years?
Well, I think it's a pretty complete ball club. I don't think there's any question about it. Not only are the veterans playing pretty good baseball or solid baseball, but you're seeing some of the younger talented kids, the Bryson Stotts and the Alek Bohms and the Brandon Marshes, starting to take more steps forward. And I think that combination has, and obviously Ranger Suarez as well, you can sort of throw him in that category. They are now reaching towards closer to their peak performance. And when you start doing that, It's a pretty good combination of quality and depth on your ball club. And, they've just been pitching so extraordinarily well. The starting pitching really has been overwhelmingly strong. And, anytime you have quality pitching like that, 1 through 6 now, it ends up, giving you an opportunity to win pretty much every night.
You mentioned Alek Baum. He's hitting 360 with 32 RBIs. The only reason I mentioned the 32 RBIs, he's only got 4 homers. So this would tell you that, mechanically, mentally, just everything it takes to drive in runs and be a good hitter, he's doing it. Is there one thing you point your finger at that sort of has taken him to, I don't want to say the 360. I don't know if he can do this all year, but it's kind of nice to see him at this early in the season.
Well, he's always been a very good hitter. He's been able to go line to line. He's a gap-to-gap type hitter. I mean, everybody's been waiting for the power, and where's the power? Well, I don't really care about guys hitting home runs, to be honest with you. I care about guys driving in runs. Mm-hmm. And he has the ability to he's got many doubles. I think he's got, 13 doubles or something like that. I don't really concern myself. The home runs are great, but if you're producing runs the way he has produced runs, he had 97 RBIs last year. And so he continues to produce runs. He's very good with 2 outs and with men on. He drives in their runs. And the biggest part of this, the forward step that he's taken is, and now there is somebody behind Bryce Harper that can protect him. And that was a real big question mark coming into the season, is who's going to protect Bryce Harper in that lineup? And I think that they found their man.
You've been around forever. Can you explain the definition of a good run producer? What does he do that other guys don't do in those situations?
They score runs and they drive in runs. I just my feeling is this: you sort of take what the pitcher is giving you, and if the guy puts you in a position to have to handle tough pitches, then you just put it in play and you create a run by using a ground ball up the middle, or driving the ball the other way, or finding a way to hit a sac fly. Those are the things that you have to do. It's about bat control. It's about making contact when it's necessary. And in this day and age of the strikeout, when you are cutting down your strikeouts in situations where there are men on base, then you're going to be successful. And I think, there's a lot of pundits and analytics folks who've gotten away from, the whole, thought process of what it is to drive a run and score a run. Mm-hmm. But to me, that's always been the most important part of creating runs, is scoring them and driving them in. And if you can do that with contact and getting on base and creating traffic on the base paths, then you've done your job. And it's not necessarily about the home run, because that can create so many opportunities to strike out as well.
Ruben, with Trey Turner out for 4 to 6 weeks, is it simply a matter of Bryson Stott being the shortstop and Whit Merrifield drawing in and essentially becoming the everyday second baseman, or are there some other ways that Rob Thompson might want to play this?
Yeah, I'm not surprised that he moved Bryson Stott. I am surprised that he moved him that quickly. But Bryson Stott's one of those guys. I mean, lest we forget, he was the shortstop for them in 2022 when they went to the World Series. Right. At the time, he was not as strong an offensive player, but he's still pretty solid shortstop. That's his natural position. And Bryson Stott's one of those guys. He's pretty steady, level-headed type of a player. He's not going to be all that affected by all this, and he's starting to swing the bat better anyway. And I don't think that's really that big of a deal. I think that they do have options. And then Mundo Sosa, shortstop, is his more natural position. It's probably his best position. There may be times against a tough left-hander where, Bryson Stott will sit and they'll let Mundo Sosa play shortstop that day. And I think the fact that they signed Whit Merrifield, and you've seen him, I know he faded off a little bit at the end of the season last year, but I've always been a fan of Whit Merrifield's. I think it's a brilliant signing. I think if it's going to help the ball club, I think helps create depth with a guy who knows how to play and knows how to win and puts together solid at bats. And I think it ended up being a very good signing. And obviously, with the loss of Trey Turner for at least a month or so, or maybe more, that's pretty big for them to have him be able to step in and do the job.
Yeah, I've always thought Whit Merrifield is the perfect piece on a really good team.
Yep.
Because he is capable of doing so many things.
Not going to hurt you either.
No, exactly. No. He's not going to make a big mistake. He's smart in the base paths. he's generally going to make the right decision. That's kind of what you need in that when you're a really good team and you can't afford to lose games.
Yeah, it's important to be able to have the people that you can count on, that a manager can trust. Trust players are important for them. And Rob, I know I've talked to a lot of managers over the years that you want to be able to put a guy in there you believe is going to know exactly what he's supposed to be doing to help you win a baseball game. And certainly Whit Merrifield is one of those guys.
Ruben, is the being fifth in Major League Baseball in stolen bases on purpose? Like, do they want to do this?
I'm sorry.
The stolen base for the Phillies. I mean, they're stealing a lot of bases. Obviously, they have some speed, but, keeping guys healthy, and it's a marathon, not a sprint. You would think, you can hit a bunch of homers, maybe not stealing bases is key early in the season. It seems like they're not. They're saying, here it is, go out and steal them if you can.
I think that they're trying to get the extra base. I don't know that they're doing it at the risk of an injury. I think they're pretty prudent and they make pretty wise decisions. I think back at the teams that we had in 07 through 11 with Rollins and Utley, they would run, but they would run judiciously. They would make the right decisions. They would they didn't run just to run. They ran to try to create a run, and they would run in situations where they thought that they could make it, and the percentages were very high. And I think that's the most important part. It's one thing to run haphazardly just because there's an opportunity to steal a base. There's another way to think about it is to try to create more runs or opportunities to score more runs, and I think that's what the Phillies are working on.
Is there a time – now, this is a front office question. I know you've been around baseball forever. You've seen everything. You've been around some great offensive players. I'm sure a lot of those great offensive players have gotten off to slow starts. Bo Bichette here has been really, really struggling. He's hitting under 200. It's odd for a bat-to-ball guy who can use the entire field to struggle this long. Front offices and just sort of personnel outside of the organization. When do you start worrying about that player, like the offensive side of the ball, and if he can turn it around and if he's going to have a better season going forward? When do you start to worry?
Well, the guy that does surprise, the fact that he's struggling that much is very surprising. He probably, I don't know Bo. I do know makeup wise, he's spectacular. I got a chance to know him a little bit, but just from watching from outside, he's a gamer. He's a guy who's going to, do everything he can and try to win baseball games. And he may be putting himself in a position to feel a lot more heat because the team's not performing at its level. So, to me, I mean, this is a guy. When I start thinking about players, I give him 2 months. I mean, you got to look at the back of the baseball card. The man's got more hits than anybody on the planet in the last 2 or 3 years. So, there's no reason to believe that he won't get there again. At some point, and it may take a little bit of time, but perhaps he's trying to shoulder some of the burdens that the team is struggling through it right now because they're not. I don't think they're playing as well as they probably could or should, and maybe he's putting himself in a position to try to do a little bit too much.
When we had Jayson on, we were talking about Ranger Suarez, who I believe is 6-0 now. He was the National League Pitcher of the Month. And we were talking about 2022, 29 starts, 10-7, and just how last year, because of the way the postseason ended for him, it wasn't the worst start in the history of baseball, but they didn't win that seventh game. Jayson kind of got the idea that there's two ways to look at this, right? Guy goes into the postseason, has a great deal of success, builds on it. Guy goes into the postseason, has some success, but then in a spotlight, comes up short. I'm going to use the phrase comes up short and uses it for added motivation. And Jason's point was in a lot of ways, that might have been a motivating postseason for Ranger Suarez, and that maybe we're seeing that carry over this year.
I mean, that's a possibility. I've never really had an issue from the time that we signed him. I think I signed him, it must have been 2014 or something like that, way back when he was a kid. He was always one of those kids that was very level-headed, very confident, went about his business in a sort of, not a matter of fact, but he sort of believed in himself. And when he steps on the mound, there's nobody who exudes more confidence and has an expectation of himself to really perform well. I think he's matured in that when he doesn't perform well or he doesn't make his pitch, he's able to bounce back and make that very next pitch, a little bit like Roy Halladay used to be in that, to be able to, just concentrate on making your very next pitch rather than dwell on the past. And I think he's done that a little bit better this year, much better this year than he has in the past. But if you think about it, I mean, this guy closed games in 2022 for them. He was their closer by the end of the season in the playoffs. I mean, this guy did a lot of things and has really stepped up, in the biggest moments as well. I mean, his overall record in the playoffs are just spectacular. Again, he didn't, finish off the season last year, but that said, I think the biggest thing for him this year, one, he's just a little bit older, probably a little bit wiser, but number two, he really had a true full spring training where he could prepare himself to be ready to start for 30 or 32 games. And so, I think he, in the past, he has not had either with visa problems or some health issues. He's never really had a full spring training to prepare for that season. And I think he's done that this season. I think he's reaping the benefits of it right now.
Ruben, if you were going to add a piece to the Phillies, you want to run into the playoffs, what would it be? What part of the game?
I would like another bullpen piece. I do like the fact that that the back end they set up pretty well. I like to have one more reliable guy. But you never know what's going to happen as the deadline approaches. I know David Dombrowski is going to be hell bent on making sure that his team is well prepared for October and November. So he'll do whatever it takes, and so will John Middleton, the owner. So I think it's more about deciding right now what is the most important piece. And I would just say the back end is probably, Ryan Kerkering starting to step forward. Perhaps he can be that guy, that right-handed guy. Sir Anthony Dominguez is not throwing as well as he has in the past and not having a little bit of a confidence issue. But the combination of Alvarado and Hoffman has been very good. I think they're 24-0. I'll probably jinx them now, 24-0 and leading after 6 or 7 innings or something like that now. But I know that their numbers overall were really, really terrible because they had a really awful start to the season. And when as you know, when you have a really bad start, it takes a long time for you to get those ERAs and whips down. But these guys are pretty good. They got a lot of thunder coming out of that bullpen with some power arms. It's just a matter of, creating a little bit more depth there, and perhaps they have it in-house in Orion Kerkering. But I always like pitching, man. Anytime you can add pitching would be a great thing.
You think what the Marlins did already changes the mindset of front offices? Quicker. Let's get it done in a hurry. No? Maybe.
It might. The problem is, the issue with, not necessarily a problem, is it's so early that with the third wild card in each one of the, in each one of the leagues, it just makes it very difficult for teams to bail or to decide what it is they truly need. Now, A.J. Preller, he's a super aggressive guy. He knew that if he can get, a star quality leadoff guy who's going to make consistent contact and get on base and that was something that he really felt he needed, that he's going to make a run at it. So I'm not surprised by that. It really kind of depends on everybody. Everybody's got their individual situation. I don't mind. I didn't mind trying to do deals early, but it was but if you only have one or two moves to make on your club, you want to sort of wait to see what the real need is until late July, and try to figure out what your team really needs, and who knows what might happen as far as injury and health and all types of things that can create different challenges along the way.
Mm-hmm.
Ruben, really good of you to join us today. Thanks so much. Terrific insight as always.
It's awesome. Thank you.
Absolutely, guys. Anytime. You guys be well.
Thank you.
You too.
Have fun.
Ruben Amaro Jr., MLB Network analyst, former Phillies GM. He was the guy who he was GM when Ranger Suarez was signed. Actually, he was GM when a lot of these guys were signed. Interesting, he mentioned Jeff Hoffman. Jeff Hoffman traded along with Miguel Castro, Jose Reyes, and Jesus Tinoco to the Rockies for LaTroy Hawkins and Troy Tulowitzki. That was that big deal in July 28, 2015, pulled off by Alex Anthopoulos. Jeff Hoffman has gone to Philadelphia and reinvented himself. 24 strikeouts this year, 1 walk. Last year, 69 strikeouts, 19 walks. 5 walks this year, 24-5, 69 and 19 last year with the Phillies. He's become a versatile back of the bullpen arm, a power
Swiss
arm,
Army knife.
97 Swiss Army knife.
Yeah.
He can get paid this year. Like, people are already talking about that. That's an arm. You're looking ahead to he's going to get paid this year.
Yeah, you'd think so. I think that for me is you get on the right team, you get an
Yes.
opportunity. You want to be like the guys around you. Like you start throwing more strikes.
And you're 32 years old.
He's got stuff. He had stuff already. Didn't have anything to do with stuff.
No,
right?
it
It had more to do with just refining the stuff and everything that goes into being a high leverage guy and the mindset and the routine and he was
sort
sort
of
of
maddening.
that.
Guys, you talk to people in this organization back then, it was maddening because they just kind of knew. They knew they had something, but you just didn't see it, right? And then he goes
Phillies are a handful,
Cincinnati. Oh, yeah. I mean, they really are.
We didn't even talk about Bryce
No. Think about it. But it's true.
Schwarber either. We didn't even mention his
I'll
name.
tell you
either.
what, and you think Whit Merrifield knew what he was doing?
Well, I mean, when they came a calling, you open that door.
Yeah.
You absolutely am playing there.
But
like
you know
it's-
what I mean about Whit? Whit is a good player on a really good team.
Yeah.
I think he's just
smart guy. Can steal a base when you need a stolen base. He can play all positions. He can get a big hit when you need to. He can go the other way. He can hit a good pitcher, which is what you want. You want to fill in the blank with a dude that hit a good pitcher.
Especially when you're in the postseason.
Absolutely.
You may have to make a move.
Can he lay off a strike to ball, breaking ball? Like, can he do that in the middle of the order? Or, in the 6th or 7th hole and get a big hit and drive in a run against a dude that throws 1,000 and throws split fingers? Like, you need those kind of guys that you're not going to have to worry about the moment being too big. So, yeah, they've hit a home run with that. Just that team is –
they're really well built.
They got it all.
You talk about a team full of good players, obviously, but they are well built. Like they're just
average guys. They got contact guys. They got dudes who can hit nothing but homers.
Yeah.
They got power and starting pitching. They got guys who can give you quality start. They're like second in baseball in quality starts. They got power at the back end of the bullpen. Now they're playing better defense. Trey Turner gets back. That'll be, Trey Turner in itself. The stolen base is a thing. They can do that now in the playoffs. What can't you do? Like, you can compete with the best teams in baseball because you don't have a weakness. And it makes it easier for your manager to always go to the right guy. It's don't matter if they're lefty or righty.
And they gotta win.
I mean, they're used to winning. Winning's a habit.
They gotta win.
That's where the Blue Jays are at. They don't know if they're supposed to win or not supposed to win. That's just the way it feels. Like they just don't know sort of where they're. Are we supposed to win or aren't we supposed to win? Where are we at? The Phillies know where they're at.
Listen, and it's something that I think we
get
need,
what you pay for, Jeff.
Well, I think it's something we need to keep in mind with Bo and Vladdy, too. They've been here for such a long time. It is entirely possible that the best Jays team was the one with Marcus Semien, where they, for whatever reason at the trade deadline, they had a shot at Raisel Iglesias. They didn't go out and get him. Guys think. Guys know it's awfully hard to fool the players at the time. And I wonder whether if you put Bo and Vladdy and you said, what was your best chance to win here? I wonder how many of them would have said that year.
I don't think they were real happy when you get rid of the left fielder, the right fielder, and the future catcher. All three at basically the same time. It's not the easiest sale to your team.
I put my hand up. And I understand Marcus Semien got silly money. He got silly money. But I put my hand up. I did not think losing Marcus Semien was going to be the big deal it turned out to be.
Yeah, you don't like 40 homers, Jeff?
Yeah. I thought I was going to get him. What can I say? That's it for us. No Blue Jays baseball tonight. We'll be back tomorrow from 2 to 4 Eastern on Sportsnet 590, the Fan of Sportsnet. Have a great night.